We all love it when the sun finally comes out. But what about when it gets too hot?
I don't think we can really separate this unseasonably warm weather from climate collapse.
When the ground dries up and becomes like tinder.
So the fire was travelling behind these properties.
I sat down with the children and told them that we'd lost our home.
You could feel the heat through the helicopter when you get close to it.
When fire services can't cope and need help from above. And what actually happens to our bodies when we're exposed to extreme heat?
I'm starting to feel what it's like to go out for a run on the UK's hottest ever day.
How well prepared is the UK for a hotter future?
We should be able to see out of everybody's windows 3 trees.
We know these types of events are going to be happening more frequently, they're going to be more intense and they're going to last longer.
We're all familiar with extreme heat's most extreme consequences. When Los Angeles burned in January 2025, home after home was razed to the ground, 30 people died. In Australia, hundreds have died and millions of hectares devastated as a result of bushfires. We've seen holiday destinations ablaze. But big wildfires are also more frequently hitting closer to home. Whether sparked by nature or human intervention, dry, hot conditions make scenes like this more common. By the end of April this year, the total area of the UK burnt by wildfires was already higher than the total for any year in more than a decade. The UK has known heatwaves in the past. 1976 was the longest on record at 16 days. It produced wildfires too.
Bulldozers carved fire breaks through the surrounding woods, but police still had to evacuate some houses.
Heatwaves in the UK aren't a new phenomenon. Although we've had a few episodes of heat events in the past, this is something that we culturally and historically aren't used to.
Since the turn of the century, the UK has been breaking weather records, and not in a good way. Spring 2025 was the warmest on record, previously held by spring 2024. 5 of the top 10 hottest years on record have occurred in the past decade. 2022 became the hottest, and I was on duty at the time.
The Met Office have issued an amber extreme heat warning. This is not something we see very often.
We had multiple heat waves that year, including one that pushed the mercury above 40 degrees in some parts of the country.
Tonight at 10, the UK has today recorded its highest ever temperature.
That was on the 19th of July. The same day, a series of wildfires destroyed dozens of homes in England.
As weather thermometers breached the 40 degrees mark for the first time in Britain.
16 homes in Wennington, East London were destroyed in one of several fires across the capital.
Black smoke, you couldn't see nothing. The whole road was totally black, you couldn't see anything.
It was just inferno within a matter of 30 seconds.
I sat down with the children and told them that we'd lost our home.
One of the vital tools for putting out wildfires around the world is planes and helicopters, and I've been invited along for a training exercise in Fife in Scotland to see up close how this is done in the UK.
Hello guys.
Hi Sarah, how are you doing?
Good. So Guy's going to take me up now so I can see what it feels like to be in the air in one of these firefighting helicopters.
Firefighting pilots need a lot of training and experience to undertake these missions safely and successfully.
So I've been looking for water. You can see it's quite shallow, so we would try and find somewhere where it looked deep. And then once I've got the water, I would then climb away, like so, and then reposition to where the fire is.
So you get really quite up and close to the fire?
Absolutely, yeah. And you can feel the heat through the helicopter when you get close to it as well.
Wow. And if there's a lot of smoke around, does that make it tricky?
Absolutely, yeah. Certainly with the wind as well, it can blow the smoke all over the place. And you can actually, if you're not careful, end up in the smoke itself. So you have to keep your wits about you.
There are only a handful of companies providing this service, with demand varying wildly.
So we're going to do a simulation now of a real wildfire. So I'm going to get out of the helicopter because for safety reasons we don't want any passengers in here while Guy goes and scoops up the water for real.
While I get to a safe distance, the crew prepares to attach the bucket which will hold the water.
Ready? Yep.
Time to make a fake fire.
So we're replicating what the situation would be like in a real wildfire here. These are just smoke grenades that we've set off behind us. Guy, the pilot, has gone to scoop the water from the nearby River Tay here, and he's going to do a loop, come back and ditch that bucket of water on the smoke, so we can see just how skillful and accurate these pilots have to be when they're fighting wildfires.
The buckets come in different sizes depending on the lifting capacity of the helicopter. This one is 1,000 litres and Guy can drop a load every 3 or 4 minutes. The pilot circles back towards the field and prepares his approach. Coming in low towards the fake fire, he releases the water. Bullseye!
Wow, incredible. Just right on top of where we had the smoke grenades falling there. Huge amount of water, extinguished them pretty much straight away, so that was so accurate.
None of the UK's fire services own or operate helicopters, so they rely on private operators to provide aerial firefighting. Helicopters are very expensive to run though, and in the UK they're usually only used for firefighting in rural settings. So when it came to those devastating wildfires that tore through communities in England back in 2022, there were only ground crews attending. I've come to Wennington to meet 2 of the firefighters who were part of that response.
It's a perfect storm really of conditions. It just developed and moved really, really quickly.
You could see that the properties were alight, untold amount of smoke coming across the green, just making conditions that little bit harder for crews.
So the fire was travelling behind these properties. The fact that the smoke blew the embers sort of further along, that then meant that the fire travelled to the other side of Wennington Road. We became aware of the church and how quickly the fire was approaching that church. And you can see from the images that the grassland burned all the way around the church, but the church itself didn't actually get damaged. The landowner maintained the grass and the vegetation to put in that natural fire break. Obviously the London Fire Brigade and all UK fire and rescue services will be there to respond to incidents, but the most important thing is to prevent them incidents from happening in the first place.
Which means more of this kind of advice during dry and hot periods. Such was the concern about disposable barbecues during the heatwaves of 2022 that several supermarkets agreed to stop selling them.
So we've learnt lessons off the back of 2022. We've increased our training, improved our training. We've invested in additional equipment, vehicles, and also things like bringing in wildfire tactical advisors.
Research has shown that they were able to cope, but they were very much close to a tipping point. And had those heat events been any higher in terms of temperature, had they lasted any longer, or had we had any more heat events, those services would have really been stretched and we wouldn't have been able to cope. So what we really need is a long-term strategic thinking around how we can adopt longer-term measures rather than rapid responses.
Now, we Brits love talking about the weather, and so do I. It's my job after all.
But how hot is too hot? Let's see what people think.
I absolutely love this hot weather. I love being out in the sun.
Anytime I can have a chance, and see the sun is out, I'm going out there.
Does it ever get too hot for you here?
Not really.
Do you think this sort of weather we're having at the moment, is this normal?
It's definitely not normal.
I don't think we can really separate this unseasonably warm weather from climate collapse.
Yeah, it is lovely, but it's not supposed to be like this.
The real issue is whether we're going to have, be able to withstand extreme weather, extreme heat.
When the temperatures climb, we often hear talk of mini heat waves, which to meteorologists is really just a hot spell.
But when does a hot spell become a heat wave? Well, the best place to talk about that is here, my usual home in the BBC Weather Centre. Let's go into the studio and I'll explain how heat waves work. So we need to have at least 3 consecutive days with temperatures above the heatwave threshold, which varies between 25 to 28 Celsius, depending on where you are in the UK. And several factors have to come together. The jet stream needs to buckle to the north of the UK, blocking low pressure systems from coming in. And that allows a big area of high pressure to form, keeping things dry. And if the high pressure sits just to the east of us, the winds are going to come in from this southerly direction, drawing in that warm air from southern Europe and from North Africa. And under an area of high pressure like this, the air descends downwards in the atmosphere. As it does so, it warms further. And if that pressure setup stays the same for several days, we can end up seeing a dome of heat just forming, and those temperatures will continue to build day on day. Our hottest heat waves occur during dry conditions. If there's been recent rainfall, some of the sun's energy goes into evaporating the moisture from the soil. But if it's been dry, more of the sun's energy directly warms the ground surface and the air above it, pushing temperatures up further. Now, let's address the question that some of you may be asking. Are heat waves linked to climate change?
Well, global temperatures have risen by around 1.1 Celsius since the Industrial Revolution. That may not sound like a lot, but it's enough to drive an increase in extreme weather events such as heat waves, making them more frequent and intense. Leading climate scientists are agreed that the record-breaking temperature we reached in 2022 would have been almost impossible without human-induced climate change.
We know that the extreme heat we saw back in 22 was a direct result of climate change, but we're seeing it affect us as individuals, people close to us, people who we know are vulnerable. And it can be increasingly salient for people at different periods within their lives. So someone who's pregnant will be more susceptible to extreme heat.
During those heatwaves in 2022, the Office for National Statistics says there were more than 4,500 excess deaths. Most of them were people over 65. The elderly, the very young, and those with underlying health conditions are all particularly vulnerable to heat. But it doesn't take a heatwave for rising temperatures to have an impact on our physical health.
Research has shown that temperatures around 25 or 26 degrees can lead to an increase in 30% of heat-related deaths in England and 60% of increase in heat-related deaths in Wales.
I want to find out just how extreme heat can affect all of us. So I've travelled to Loughborough University. They have a heat lab here where they can simulate all kinds of weather conditions, and I'm their guinea pig for the day.
Simon.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
The mandatory health and safety paperwork before I hit the changing room.
Okay, Simon, I'm in my PE kit, so I've got my heart rate monitor on. Shall we go in?
Yep. We have a deep body temperature which is around about 37 degrees. In the heat, what happens is that we tend to actually gain more heat than we can dispose of. We've got an environment that's very controlled. We're currently 28 degrees, 55% humidity, which would be like a warm summer's day in the UK. What we're going to do is have a acclimatization period for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to get you onto the treadmill and see how your heart rate and your body temperature respond to that. Principally in the heat, when we exercise or do activity, we tend to produce sweat, and it's the evaporation of that sweat from the skin that actually helps us cool and maintains our body temperature.
Let's turn it up, see how this feels when I go for a little run.
When it's hot, our ability to certainly do physical work is impacted by the heat. We could have a decrease in the amount of physical activity we could do, so therefore the amount of output that we can actually have.
So the air's been quite still in here up until now and feels quite sticky and humid, but we're going to turn on the fans now and see how different things feel with a little bit more airflow.
Does that feel a bit better?
Yes, instantly feels better.
Yes, so you're improving that evaporation. So you're getting both convective and evaporative heat loss at the same time. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. It's hard work. I've definitely got a sweat on and my heart rate's up. Doesn't feel too uncomfortable. Is this as hot as it gets?
No, we could go and have a look at Britain's hottest day.
Over 40 degrees?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like that could be a challenge. Yeah, it feels like I've just stepped out into Bangkok Airport, this kind of
So
heat.
very oppressive.
This feels very different.
What I'm noticing about exercising in this kind of heat is that I'm starting to feel really thirsty pretty quickly, certainly much quicker than in the previous chamber. So I feel like I'm going to have to keep hydrated to stop getting dehydrated in the heat.
After just a few minutes, my mouth is dry, I'm starting to feel a little bit wobbly. The fun is over.
As soon as you start exercising, a really rapid increase in your heart rate, and here we're going up to about 175. So this is really quite high. So therefore you're actually working much harder to do exactly the same activity. And so that's the part of the strain that's coming from the environment as opposed to the activity.
So yeah, it's really interesting to see. So you weighed me before I went in and then after the heat chambers as well. So what was the difference?
Yeah, we wanted to see how much sweat you would lose. And approximately you'd lost around about 250 grams, which is equivalent to a small bottle of water. That's water that you need to now replace to maintain your hydration.
You can see how people get dehydrated really quickly in those kind of conditions.
Yeah.
So what I experienced there was a very mild form of heat stress,
Put your hands up.
which, left unmanaged, can cause serious illness and even death.
When an extreme heat event occurs, anyone and everyone can become vulnerable very, very quickly. And this is often because of some of the behaviours that we adopt. So we might not put sun cream on, we might go outside, we might not shade ourselves, or we might not hydrate ourselves.
You've got a difference between when we go on holiday to Spain, Italy, Greece, and we're relaxing. We're not actually undertaking the tasks that we do when we're at home. So it's being aware of that and what the cumulative effects are.
And what about the buildings we live in? The UK's housing stock is the oldest in Europe. They might look quaint and give us a real sense of history, but can be tough to live in when temperatures are at the extremes.
We have a whole range of buildings in the UK at the moment, and all of them will perform differently in terms of when they're exposed to extreme temperatures. And we're already seeing those temperatures now, not just this warmer, wetter, wilder future we've got coming, it's happening now. And depending how homes are built in terms of the materials they're built from, the type of windows they have, how old the properties are, and whether or not they have good ventilation systems, they will all deal with that increase in heat in different ways, and in some cases they will just become uninhabitable.
One of the key goals of the current government is to build new homes.
It's time to build 1.5 million new homes across the country.
But those new builds are more about relieving pressure on the housing market than replacing or upgrading the old ones. There are concerns about whether the current building standards are strong enough to deal with expected temperature changes.
We're facing a really complex future with the need to both reduce energy use and also deal with this warmer climate coming down the track. And what building regs don't do sufficiently well at the moment is take that sort of holistic approach to things. And they need to be much, much better at dealing with the overheating that we're going to experience in new buildings, houses and commercial buildings up and down the country.
Within our children's lifetime, 90%. of homes will be susceptible to overheating. So currently we're building and enhancing a building stock which isn't going to keep people safe. So we need to be thinking about how to keep people warm in the winter, which is the priority, and align that with keeping people cool in the summer as well, so that we're not building homes that are going to overheat and put people at risk.
So what needs to happen then for our homes to better cope with climate change?
We should be able to see out of everybody's windows 3 trees. We should have 30% canopy cover in an area, and nobody should be more than 300 metres from a park or other green space. And what you're doing then is you're addressing those climate warming by putting in all the greenery that helps suppress the temperature, but also you're providing a lot of social amenity for people, neighbourhoods and communities at the same time.
And then there's the environments we work in, both indoors and outdoors.
We don't have a maximum legal working temperature, which means that even if temperatures within an office reach over 30 degrees, over 35 degrees, employers aren't mandated to send people home. That needs to change.
We have a minimum temperature, but there is no maximum temperature. And part of this is that actually there are certain professions where it's naturally a hot environment. Kitchens, bakers, people working in paper mills. These are naturally hot environments that would be probably above what we would normally recommend for people working in. So it becomes really problematic.
How do we keep the country on track when it's too hot? As much as we like to complain about the effect of the weather on our transport infrastructure, there are efforts to mitigate against potential disruption due to hot weather. Each spring, Network Rail paints sections of their track white to help reflect heat and to prevent them from buckling. We've come to watch the paint dry.
So Network Rail is investing £2.8 billion over the next 5 years. It's all about making sure that the tracks can perform reliably and trains can get from A to B. Extreme heat is a really critical thing for the railway to tackle. And we know that in 2024, buckled rails as a result of extreme heat resulted in around 240 days of delays for passengers. And that's something that we're really keen to make sure that we can really minimise where possible.
Extreme weather also hits food production, with farmers particularly vulnerable.
But one way of adapting to heat is to take advantage of it. And many farms like this one have taken that decision to diversify. Grapes do particularly well in warmer climates. And coincidentally, this vineyard was planted in that record-breaking year of 2022.
Vines are fantastic for our changing climate because they have deep tap roots, which makes them particularly resilient to weather extremities. As a farmer, my relationship with the weather is contentious at best. So, for example, we may experience and have in the past experienced very, very wet autumn drilling periods, and as a result we've not actually been able to get onto the land to plant our seeds. And then any seeds that may survive, if we then have a very dry spell, we then find that those seeds, some of which may have germinated, then simply die off. And equally, if you're attempting to plant your seeds now in a very dry spell, you can only imagine if you're planting into effectively sandy, gravelly land and there's no water there, your seeds are simply going to sit on the top of the soil and probably die. So these extremities make a sustainable food business very challenging, and this is why we have decided to diversify. We actually planted this vineyard in 2022 when we were experiencing really extreme heat, and they thrived. They did really well, and by putting down those deep roots, they're creating a much more sustainable crop for the future of this farm. We're hoping that anything generated from the vineyard can be used to reinvest into our arable. We're really keen to invest in more resilient cereals to generate continued food production, as food security is at the heart of what we do here as British farmers. So we're really hopeful that this vineyard diversification will see us long into the future as arable farmers as well.
It takes about 5 years from planting the first vine to getting the first full bottle of wine. So for now, this is empty, but it won't be too much longer before it's filled up.
The World Meteorological Organization predicts that global temperatures are expected to remain at or near record levels for the next 5 years. Bad news for anyone affected by the consequences, which is pretty much all of us. It's important to keep cool heads when dealing with extreme heat, but planning and investment isn't keeping pace with the thermometer.
We need a long-term strategy when it comes to heat. We've been addressing heat mainly in a reactive response coping way, so as and when a heat event occurs, but we need to be thinking in the long term. We know these types of events are going to be happening more frequently, they're going to be more intense, and they're going to last longer.
And intense can mean deadly. So the big question then is, are we ready? Are we even able to do what it takes to get the UK prepared for a hotter world?